My digital artifact for BCM325 will consist of a series of blogs and videos setting out my career plan as a music journalist and analysing the future of the Australian music industry in the next 5 years. My blogs will be more focused on the academic research and the subject materials, whereas these videos will hopefully be a lot more conversational. To give some context about myself, I'm in my final year studying communications and media with a major in journalism at the University of Wollongong. I've surrounded myself with hip hop my whole life since a very young age. Became passionate about music journalism in particular during my senior high school years. From that, I started writing for AUD, Australia's Hip Hop Connect, and I've been writing with them for a little over a year now. So in today's video, I want to plan out my career path at AUD using the SMART style of goal planning. The SMART approach breaks down planning into 5 categories: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. The related blog post will dive more into the reasoning behind my priorities by analysing the future of Australia's music industry. But for now, let's start at S for specifics and outline the 3 things I've prioritised in accomplishing in the next 5 years. These include receiving a full-time paid position at AUD, hosting a series of long-form interviews with different Australian artists and industry people, and beginning to venture in events management and PR. Next, we have M for measurable. Things like views, likes, followers, paychecks, they're all different ways to measure progress in a job that's digitally dominated. But for me, more importantly, the way I would measure my success in the field is through the feedback loops I create with my peers and my followers, as well as the quality of my portfolio, the contact list I build, and the opportunities that I gain from previous work. Going down each priority, A stands for achievable and requires us to think whether we're setting realistic goals and whether we have the resources and the skills to achieve them. Receiving a full-time paid role at AUD is something that isn't quite realistic right now, as we're still only a small independent team, and though I can't say much, I have a lot of confidence in our team and our content in the next 5 years that AUD will be in a position to start paying consistently. There is certain work that is paid, but it's not quite sustainable for a full-time gig, which is definitely something that I'm looking to achieve in the next 5 years. As for hosting the long-form interviews, this is something definitely achievable in the short-term future. Ideally, I want to do those interviews in person as opposed to Zoom, which would mean travelling to Melbourne frequently or even moving there permanently. Although I don't want to restrict myself by saying this, so I think to get started, I would look to do online interviews or even local artists that I can interview. Lastly, getting into events management and PR is something that will come more naturally when I better establish myself within the scene. This will be a monetary avenue as well as a chance to host gigs that will expand my contact list and give upcoming artists an opportunity to perform. The achievability of my plans depend on my own work ethic and skill that I think will naturally develop with experience and hard work. Moving on to R for relevant, where I assess why I'm setting these goals now and whether it aligns with my overall objectives. These goals are extremely relevant with my own personal plan, as well as the overall development of hip hop in Australia. I'm coming up at a time when the scene is reaching ridiculous heights, and I feel as though the media and the fan reactions don't necessarily reflect this. Long-form journalism is something that I've been passionate about for a while now, and I feel as though by interviewing artists and other industry people in a transparent and loosely structured manner will appeal to both old and new fans. To have something like Zane Lowe or No Jumper in Australia in an independent and casual setting would elevate the relationship of hip-hop in Australia with artists, media, local fans, and new international listeners as well. Lastly, time-bound gets us to set a deadline and assess whether this is realistic. In a 5-year scheme, all these goals are definitely realistic, and honestly, I've left myself a little wiggle room because I'm confident that I can achieve these in 3 to 5 years, if that. The SMART style is helpful in visualizing a 5-year plan, but I think the best way to approach this would be to reassess this plan every year or so and make adjustments based on where I am at the time. This way, I won't be fixated on 3 goals, but instead be setting smaller milestones to help me reach a much larger goal. And ultimately for me, the goal is to play a key role in hip-hop in Australia through a magnitude of avenues. Though this is a pretty vague goal, the SMART method allows me to map it out a lot better. So that's the SMART 5-year plan that I've set myself. In the blog post linked below, I'll be diving into more of the evidence behind my goals with reference to like the subject materials, academic research, and related evidence that inspired my plan. Thank you for watching.